and those tempo matchups are the ones that you can sort of solve, given you have the hand to do so. But let's get into it. McBanterFace, that's an easy full toss. Muzzy's hand right off the bat is incredible. McBanterFace is on the play and does get a 1. So that is a big deal.
Bigger deal now because he's got a 1 and basically a 2 to go with it, followed by a 3. And play the green card in Hearthstone used to be the thing to do, and Hunter is kind of still how that works.
Already. A difficult situation. So
lots of choices.
Yeah, Demon Companion was the one that jumped out to me the most. If you do hit charge, you could coin Adorable Infestation and have the board. If you don't, then you could always just do that anyway.
It's a really bad one.
Yeah, but could just go coin Guardian Og Merchant to protect this from the value trade. Adorable Infestation would not protect it from a value trade if Adorable Infestation was on the other side. So I think because of that, okay.
Yeah, he changed his mind at the last second there, but I liked what you were saying because of the opposing Adorable Infestation. This gets a bit messy quickly. However, it's not there, so okay. So when you are on the coin, having lots of things that add up to 4 rather than a 4 drop's favourable, so it's a good pickup for Muzzy.
Yeah, but now McBanterFace is, because the coin was used and Muzzy wasn't able to get an advantage on the board with it, now we're in a situation where McBanterFace is kind of just a mana ahead. Muzzy's going to be reacting for much of the game, which is not the situation that you want to be in generally. So, going to take the expensive route, but now this Man Crick is going to come down. It's going to be unchallenged.
Yeah, the way Muzzy's done it does allow him to maybe near-fight Org Merchant next turn, but it's not a great spot to be in, but he's hanging in there, and now he's not because he's picked up the worst card in the mirror for me.
Oh, yeah? Isn't the worst card in the mirror? I would never have guessed that you thought that.
Honestly, TJ, I just don't like it. I
still think it's fine. It's a card that your opponent can't possibly, like, gain a tempo over, right? Because it's always going to deal 5 damage to something. It can value trade itself, but you can't value trade it, if that makes any sort of sense.
Yes, it does. But the trouble is, sometimes it just doesn't matter because it's so late.
Oh, he hit the Man Crick! Oh my goodness!
Was that a pop-off?
He's popped off twice. That's 2 pop-offs. 2 separate pop-offs for McBanterFace in one day.
Oh, he started to pop off. This is the champion we deserve, TJ.
Yeah, and Muzzy's doing the opposite of pop-off. He's deadpan staring into his screen right now. It is very, very difficult to come back from a situation like this. Even if Muzzy does try and initiate a race, a 3-7 on the board that's just not going anywhere. Yeah, McBanterFace, there's just no reason for him to do anything. He's got 9 damage on board. Muzzy, it just doesn't seem like he's going to be able to do much of anything.
Yeah, and just to put it into context, when you're behind, you have to put your damage into the minions on the board, and 7 from Hunter is just a lot of damage. Not just forgetting the amount of minions and cards it eats up, so you end up having to ignore it, which means that McBanterFace lightly goes face, but he constantly has the choice of how to use his 3-7. So he is in a great spot, as you described.
Can he set up a 2-turn? So if he goes 6 to face, 7 to face with True Aim, and then 5 more to face with Piercing Shot, that's 12, and then you'd have a guaranteed 5 from hand? No. So maybe you go for a halfway play of Piercing Shot the Cold Neophyte to take more damage off the board, still ship the 6 to face.
Is it going to be the Felmore's time to shine. That Felmore can bump into the Enraged Mankrik. Maybe, with the help of some tracking, Muzzy can get back into this.
He's going to have a huge health deficit, though, which is usually too much to get back from in this particular mirror match.
Let me try and think of something else. I can't think of something else. That was it. That was my one shot. Because like TJ described, Muzzy's just so far behind on health.
Yeah, he's just actually going to push full face damage. I guess he does set up for the 2-turn, assuming nothing on the board, because he does just, his minions just stick around. He always assumed that his minions are going to go away, and you have to count damage based on that, but yeah, none of these are good enough.
I'm looking to see this second Felmore get a guaranteed value trade into McBanterFace's board. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Vengeance is near.
It's not going to happen, because it's never going to hit the board. The first one might not as well.
Yeah.
Been a tough game for Muzzy, and it's a massive game for McBanterFace, because like we've described at the start, getting this Hunter out of there is great news for McBanterFace.
Yeah, because then the Warlock has pretty much good matchups across the board. His Rogue then will be the deck that Muzzy would have to try and target in the series, and yeah, that's just not a very reliable plan.
Right. A lot of what happens to the Rogue matches comes down to what the Rogue does, if that makes sense, and give it 3 goes to draw its 50% good and 50% bad starts, which is roughly how it works out. It's going to get one. So that's why it's a 50% matchup.
Yep, and with Trium Crescent equipped and a Trampling Rhino in hand, there's really nothing Muzzy could ever do to come back. Even if he does manage to clear the board, he's going to have minions left over for that Trampling Rhino to trade into. I mean, McBanterFace has lethal from hand with quick shot. It really didn't matter what he picked from that Wrangler. Felmall knows where to go, though. At least that's a good thing for Muzzy. But everything else is a bad thing for Muzzy in this situation.
Yeah, the fact that he has conceded and it's 1-0 to McBanterFace, definitely regarded as a bad thing. And watching Banter drinking his water there, hand was steady. Little nervous laugh, but he's doing well. He's keeping control of himself. Will that continue? We even saw Gabby getting nervous, like super nervous earlier in the day. And never thought that would happen, ever. So at some point, McBanterFace is going to start realising that this could be his day. And that's when it's going to be really hard to play well.
But we haven't reached that point yet. I think starting 1-0 in a series, especially in a matchup like this, where it's just essentially a straight-up mirror and a very important one to win, given the context of how their lineups line up, that probably eases your nerves a little bit. Now, for Muzzy, we're looking at Face Hunter wanting to get a win against Handlock, because that's probably his best matchup, and then hoping that twice in a row he can target the Rogue with both his Priest and his Druid, with Shaman being banned away. Very difficult, but they are these super aggressive board-based decks. If you can get a good start, which the decks are designed to have good starts, and your opponent misses their removal, anything can still happen. We've seen these matchups time and time again. These aren't new decks. There's some new techs thrown in there that can change things from time to time, but they're not new decks. So, still a series. And McBanterFace is just going to try and get this handlock out of the way right off the bat.
Yep, it's time to have a look at it. And I'm curious to see what Muzzy runs into it. Not that it does matter. Obviously it matters, but they're all kind of the same thing running into this deck. It's going to be very much about whether McBanterFace just gets enough removal to get out of there, enough health gain, whether he can get down to the 10 cards, get enough health back. All those things that we've seen lots of times before. And still going to keep us sort of hanging on in there, wondering when this Rogue is going to enter the fray, because that is now, for me, it's all interesting, but it's the major point of interest is how he's going to get that Rogue out of there. Muzzy can one game against this warrior. That'll make his job so much easier against the rogue. Warrior, warlock.
There you go. I was going to correct you, but you corrected yourself. And here we go. This theoretically should be the best matchup. I was going to say Soul Rend is pretty much the card for Warlock against any of Muzzy's decks that McBanterFace would want. I imagine that's going to be a keep. You can also think about keeping Colt Neophyte just to kind of keep things under control. In the early game, Muzzy actually keeps Warsong Wrangler.
Right. I think that... I have no idea if that's normal or not, but it makes a lot of sense. He can expect to draw 1, he can expect to draw 2s, and when he starts running out of gas, he can play the Warsong and get himself a nice 7/6 Rhino that can't get soul rendered. He can get a lot of other things, but you know.
Yeah, that's my biggest thing is it can get a lot of other things. We'll see if it's going to pay off, but McBanterFace went for the full keep, so Muzzy can certainly expect the Soul Rend at some point, because there's not that many cards that you want to keep in all situations. His matchup one that Felmaw is quite good.
Yes.
Almost certainly going to be 5 damage to face.
This is Felmaw's happy place. This matchups that don't play minions. Even if McBanterFace is forced into playing a minion here and Felmaw hits it, that's kind of a result. Obviously not the best, but yeah. McBanterFace realises that, so just chooses to play his normal way. There might be a tour guide or a neophyte, but put them both out there, they're just going to get mown down.
Yep. It looks like it's going to be Volpertinger and probably just ship a Wound Prey to face, just to go a little bit wider on the board, try and get some early damage in. If these Volpertingers do stick around, there's a possibility for the first Warsong Wrangler to buff these and just cash in on damage.
Yeah.
Muzzle their magic.
Quite a big deal. Let's see where the Felmaw goes. It knows its job, it knows the place.
Didn't get the damage one.
He needed it.
And now, because of Soul Rend, I think Muzzy's in the business of full trading off this board and giving Divine Shield to the biggest minion.
Sure.
A couple of reasons, because if he doesn't full trade, then McBanterFace could double trade, get the Divine Shield off, and then Soul Rend completely off. I guess one trade is good enough, because that protects the Divine Shield. It does get McBanterFace deeper in the deck, which activates the Scavengers, activates the Bloodshard Bristlebacks, which he wants to avoid.
Gets him 5 cards deeper. There's 16. With Wrangler in hand, 5/3 on the board. It's an okay risk reward, I think.
Oh, okay. Scavenger, Bristleback, and Flesh Giant, all discarded. That's good news for Muzzy. That's one less thing that he has to worry about.
He's just having a think here, because next turn he can play Warsong number 2 and some 3/3s if he wants to take the Volpertingers. Rhino was the logical pick, but it's definitely worth having a think about.
Yep.
But he can still do that and delay the decision, so taking the Rhino is always correct, I think. Okay, so there's a Null and a Touch, the only 2 removal cards. That's not quite enough.
Oh, Barracuda Bane.
Stuff!
That is going to be a lot of loaded up damage for Muzzy here, with an aim shot already in hand.
Yeah, how does he go about this? I think you just play the Barak, but there's other options available, right? Because he's got to make this push count, and he's playing the lowest health minion, lowest attack minion.
He doesn't have like a guaranteed 2-turn if he just unloads aim shot hero power to face, assuming that the minion will get removed. He could like force McBanterFace to be under a lot of pressure and have to heal immediately. but honestly, the Barret kind of does the same thing because McBanterFace will know that the damage is in hand. We're also not approaching turn 7, so the quick shot, aim shot, hero power wouldn't be online for next turn.
I have no time for games.
I would listen to an argument for every single card in hand right now. Really curious to see which way he goes. The Barret's the logical play, right? This gives him the most options going forward. The only downside of it is the slowest of the plays into McBanterFace's currently very low health total where a quick finish might be required.
Yep.
Ah, the pressure's on though. Banter really doesn't have much going on now.
He can get the scavenger down for free.
Okay.
It would involve Altar Fire plus a life tap. And he's down a Blood Shard Bristleback.
And just to be picky, that's not free, is it? That's 3 mana and 2 health.
Yeah, well, he could do it for 2 mana with Tour Guide. So I think he needs to hit Bristleback. So you Tour Guide tap first, see what happens, right?
Sure.
Hits Soul Rend. He can do that and get Scavenger online?
That seems good.
Okay, it looks like he's just going to take the health. He's worried about dying. Backfire, Alter. Didn't lose the second Bristleback, so it still exists. Biggest thing here is he would need a target for it. Eventually he will need to kill Muzzy. That's one of the things that we need to get going. His hand is quite empty to be able to do that.
Muzzy's big question here is, does he want to weave in hero powers or does he just want to throw out a huge Rhino? And this tracking seems to imply he's going to throw out a huge Rhino.
I think it implies he's going to aim shot hero power. I don't think
you
want to give anything for like Tamsin Drain Soul.
Sure.
Unless it's actually dealing damage. So tracking and look for more damage, right? Look for like quick shot, and then throw the aim shot hero power to face. He's got 10 damage in hand the follow up. So he would do 7 this turn, bring McBanterFace down to 5.
Yeah.
And then have 10 to follow up. So it would kill through just about anything.
No, you're right. I love it.
I have no time for games.
Piercing shot is damage. Yep.
Yeah, you're right. He's just going for this. 2 7s.
Yep, and has 10 damage loaded up from hand at the very least. So McBanterFace needs to do a lot of stuff here. Drain Soul won't be enough by itself. And still needs targets to be able to do these on. Obviously, he could do it on his own Baron Scavenger. But again, he needs to win the game. Inevitability is not on his side at the moment. A tap will gain him 1 life overall. So he would tap and then go back up to 6 life. He's still looking at like Blood Shard Bristleback as the biggest out here. Mortal Coil's not it. And yeah, he can't heal enough.
I was just going to get this done with the Hunter, which you highlighted was the chance, or one of the chances to take a game off this Warlock, but the fact he's done it is a huge deal in this final. Yeah, and obviously McBanterFace doesn't know which key numbers he's playing around, so gets as much health as he can.
Yep, he's not dead because Muzzy can't play everything.
Mm-hmm.
But again, he still has to find a way to win the game. Muzzy could push 3 here, right, with Trampling Rhino hero power, and that would leave nothing on the board, which is what he wants at this stage. He wants there to be nothing on the board because he doesn't want McBanterFace to have targets for the Blood Shard Bristleback.
I agree, and I like the play. It's just 5 mana, deal 1 damage, but it does so much more than that. It slows down the opposing clock. It gets 1 damage out of a card that's never going to get any damage, and there's not much else you can do anyway, unless he wants to drop the Fell more, which is another option for maybe, if he can't get the damage through, a sneaky win. But yeah, he goes for the play that you saw, and I thought was the best play too.
Yep. Still has 10 damage loaded up. And that's not a bristleback.
And he now doesn't have a minion to go if he finds a bristleback. He'd have to raise dead, kind of defeating the point. I think he's going to complete the quest.
Well, he still has a draw with the Tour Guide and Mortal Coil. Drain Soul. He knows there's a quick shot in hand, though. This will complete the quest. Complete the quest, so he won't die. He'll go back up. I know it seems weird.
The whole turn seems weird. It's like, yeah, an exercise in how to concede by playing 27 different cards. Usually reserved only to rogue players, but it goes to one game apiece, TJ. Muzzy's feeling it again. Had pop-offs from each player, and it's only 1-1.
Holy moly, you can tell how exciting it gets, because the more excited I get, the more blurry I get.
That's always the sign of an incredible Hearthstone series. Blurry TJ.
Yep, you know it's getting good. You know it's heating up.
Just can't keep his molecules together.
Yep, that's right. But that was a big one. I said that was the best matchup, the most likely for Muzzy to actually even get a win against the Warlock was that one. So now we have the Handlock and Garrote Rogue, the most standard you can get as far as the metagame has gone over this season of Grandmasters versus Aggro Druid and Shadow Priest, which seems like a little bit of a throwback, right?
Yeah, it's... I mean, the Shadow Priest has been the best deck performing throughout the whole of Hearthstone Grandmasters this season, but 99% of that was before Elucia got nerfed, which was a huge difference maker. It was only a few percent, but it's the difference between 47% and 54% or something like that. Like, that's how important the card was.
Yeah.
But Aggro Druid can get this done if it's playing against the Warlock. There's always this... Can you draw cards? You don't have to rush. It's not quite the straight beatdown deck people might think it is. There's a lot of trickery you can do. You're not favoured. I'm not claiming that Muzzy is favoured at all with this against either of the two remaining decks, but against the Warlock in particular. But there's tricks he can do to get himself a chance of winning this game, is what I'm trying to say. Soul Rend once again from McBanterFace, but he had it against the Hunter and it wasn't enough.
Yeah, but I mean, against Druid, it's much better, right? Much better. Druid is entirely reliant on their board to do anything, to draw cards, to push damage. All their entire strategy revolves around that. I think that having Soul Rend in your opening hand gives you a huge advantage. Obviously, yeah, Muzzy sees 2 cards kept, and he knows that a Soul Rend's there. In a way, that does give him not an advantage, but it gives him some things to play around. And if you were to tell me what's the ideal hand you'd want versus a Warlock that you know has Soul Rend, I would say it's this one. He's got good tempo with Battle Guard plus the Bone Trooper. Oh my goodness!
Oh, it's this one, yeah.
And a Greybow too. So now, if the... well, no, because he can coin it next turn. Oh no, he's going to coin Backfire.
Right.
So now Muzzy can take the opportunity to set up the Greybow, and then the following turn go Cult Neophyte, Guardian, Og Merchant. Oh my gosh! And a Composting. Oh.
And there's no other damage apart from that Soul Rend in McBanterFace's hand right now. He will have more cards, of course. He's got some free draws. But this is a lot of damage going to come crashing in over 2 turns, TJ.
Yeah, and he can't even Soul Rend next turn because Muzzy's going to block it with Cold Neophyte and push a ton of damage with the Guardian Og Merchant. There's also the opportunity for Muzzy to go Cold Neophyte and know that the Soul Rend can't come down because of the effect, and then composting, and then Guardian Og Merchant the very next turn to protect from Soul Rend. There's a lot going on here.
He can also buff the attack value with the Og Merchant if needed.
Yep.
On the middle card, so loads of options for Muzzy. Let's see which one he picks, because this is huge. This could decide who goes to the World Championships. Oh my goodness, what is going on? So he's got to Neophyte, right?
Yeah, Neophyte to block the Soul Rend and the spells. I can imagine the hard part is like McBanterFace actually played minions. So I think a trade like Graybo into the Colt Neophyte, because you're okay if Graybo dies in this situation. You actually want it to die in some cases if Soul Rend and the board's not being cleared. And he can value trade over the 1/1 with the 2/3 as well. And then push what, 4? It would only be pushing 4?
He's pushing.
That happens. That happens no matter what. I don't know. One trade happens.
Time waits for no one.
There's no Soul Rend next turn. Must remember this.
Yes.
The Witch trade.
The 2/3 goes over the 1/1? Okay, yeah, one trade happens. And, I mean, these are essentially dead draws. I think McBanterFace might be dead.
I actually think McBanterFace just dies here. And if he doesn't, Muzzy gets to play composting and whatever he draws next turn to hold back the Oracle, and then he goes Oracle and all he gets from the composting. I think he's dead anyway. But even if he wasn't dead, he'd draw 5 cards and have an Oracle in hand to go with those 5 cards.
Yeah, so it'd have to be Tour Guide, tap into Drain Soul, which would cost 3. And then he Drain Souls the Bone Chewer Brawler, and then there's 4, 8, 11 on board, and he'd be at 14.
McBanterFace can't find a way.
And that's if he hits exactly Drain Soul. I guess Touch of Nathrazim would also work, but every out that I see is Tour Guide, tap into healing. Healing/remove.
All right.
It's
That's not healing now.
Yep. And that's game.
That's massive. Muzzy 2-1 ahead, but he's taking the games off this Warlock, which is huge. They're like bonus wins, especially this one, because he was expecting to lose those. When we had the chat before the match started off camera, we were talking about my reductive way of doing it, which is Warlock always wins, rest is 50-50, McBanterFace starts 1-0 up. I know that's reductive, but you're discussing a match, you sort of boil it down and then you boil outwards, kind of like TJ's camera. And that's where we're at. And now Muzzy's 2-1 ahead and the Warlock's still on the table, but the Rogue is also still on the table, which was the one we were talking about Muzzy might have to go through 3 times. Well, he's only got to go through it once, and he gets another go at a Warlock if he misses. He's in a great spot. But, TJ, this deck.
Yeah, this is the weakest deck in Muzzy's lineup, I think. It lost a lot in a lot of matchups by losing Mindrender or Lucia. Void Shard can make up for it in the matchups where you really need that extra reach, but it can also be a dead card in matchups where you need the tempo, right? Like against Rogue. He's going to be entirely reliant on 1, having good starts, and 2, dodging Soul Rend against Warlock in particular. It's still going to be tough for Muzzy. He's up 2-1. But I still don't know if I want to call him a favorite in the series just because of how much of an X factor this Priest is and how hit or miss it can be in a lot of situations.
It is so grim without the Elucia. I don't think until you take the Elucia out, you realise how many games you win because your opponent just loses the game when you played that card. And which usually means you can't just make a massive board and that wins the game. You have to make 2 massive boards, and the Priest doesn't just have that going on anymore. It can do it. It's got Voracious Reader. It's got some good cards. It's got the Raised Deads. It can definitely do it. I'm not saying it can't, but it's so much harder than it used to be. More than just 1 nerf would have you believe.
Yeah. And McBanterFace has got a pretty good hand. He's got a ton of removal. From this stage on, it's going to be about if he can find the follow-up to it. Cold Neophyte is good. Twilight Deceptor doesn't want to see the Void Shard. I would much rather have a Raised Dead in this situation. Soul Rend picked up again.
Yep. Not done him much good so far, but yep. This time, the Priest is an open goal for Soul Rend. You can use it whenever you want. You're never facing a 6 health minion or whatever in this.
So many
I know it's possible. There's Benedictus and there's the Merchants. Yeah, there you go. I knew them. But this hand surely beats the Priest.
Yeah.
So much removal. Card draw, Tamsin. That's everything.
Oh, Twilight Deceptor. Okay. That's a raised dead.
It is. And there's a Neophyte in hand, I guess. Would like to have a Horror or something, but Neophyte's not bad with the raised dead.
I wonder.
But how's he ever going to deliver, a couple of lumps of damage as we were talking about yesterday?
Yeah, that's the big question. It's going to take a long time, and McBanterFace does just seem to have enough answers to get there. Maybe if he can go wide enough and Soul Rend discards all the threats, and then McBanterFace has to play super scrappy for the rest of the game, and Muzzy can somehow manage to find like double Void Touch Attendant, push damage, raise dead them, and then Void Shard hero power.
Yeah, a scrappy board after a Soul Rend and then double Void Touched.
Yeah. Like, this situation is hard because he wants to block Soul Rend, but he also wants to pull the Raise Dead out of his deck. I think I'm leaning towards Cold Neophyte to get a little bit more damage in from these minions first before Soul Rend comes out. And then next turn, hopefully he can get like Cold Neophyte back from Raise Dead once he Twilight Deceptors, and then it inevitably gets Soul Rended away. This is just... I mean, McBanterFace has exactly what you'd want in the matchup, it feels.
I think Muzzy's playing that my next card is Void Touch, otherwise good game. Honestly, I think that's just what he's done here. We've had that conversation about how does he get chunky damage. Well, if his next card's a Void Touch Attendant, that's quite a lot of damage on the board right now. And if it's not, well, were you winning this game anyway? Plus, there doesn't have to be a Soul Rend. Maybe it sticks and he delivers 7 damage twice. Maybe that's enough to get there. But there is a Soul Rend. In fact, the times we see this matchup lost from this position, from the Warlock side, is when the Warlock player thinks they're Yarla, but they're not Yarla. And they try and get a little bit too greedy. You can actually just spray your removal about in this matchup and get away with it.
Yeah. Tap. Whoa.
Okay. If this is a Void Touch, this gets exciting. Nope. It's Patches. Just got to point everything at face here with Power Play Deceptor, right?
Yep. And then hope that you can find enough damage. Which the Benedictus does a lot of things that Muzzy does not want in this scenario. It makes the Voracious Reader worse that he'd want off the top to try and get those Void Touch Attendants to end the game. It's too expensive if you want to be playing multiple things in the same turn.
There's a world where he plays it and they don't have the blast. Again, we can see McBanterFace does have the blast, but there's that world that Muzzy probably has to live in where the blast doesn't happen. I think he has to take this turn, unless he draws something amazing, which he doesn't, to just play the Benedictus and get it out of his hand for the reasons you said. He disagrees. That's a terrible raise dead. I think I want to see the Benedictus played here and hope they don't have Unstable, even though we can see the Unstables there. It begins the process of emptying the hand for those readers that you were talking about.
I also want to get this second Raise Dead out of my deck right now, though. I could see him going like...
There is no light, only power.
But go on anyway, even though he did the other one.
Yeah,
Obviously close.
2-2-1, but Imprisoned Homunculus just feels so slow.
Yeah, that makes sense. If Homunculus was any other 1-drop, then it would probably be fine, right?
Yeah.
And he couldn't even really... He'd have to have used hero power Deceptor Homunculus. Yeah, that would just be grim, I think. Ugh. Scary.
Haven't heard of me.
A lot of this is kind of moot because I feel like McBanterFace just has all the answers for as long as he needs the answers for. But hey, maybe Muzz can wheedle a win somehow that we can't see. There's the start.
That's a lot to get through. And that Tamsin is so threatening on the other side of the board. Holy moly. Like, so Void Shard deals 4 damage, right, most of the time, unless you have a Void Touch Attendant. Yeah, you can't get away with Void Sharding. That's just too... Oh, he got back the Benedictus. Oh, no. Cold Neophyte could have been kind of bad in this situation because it would have allowed McBanterFace with Tamsin on the board to touch as many times as his mana would have allowed to.
All right. There's a null
picked up. That's good.
Finally
allowed McBanterFace to fight back.
Yeah, actually putting something on the board is the best way to beat opposing minions.
Yeah.
So many possibilities.
Don't overgreed it. Just do the right amount of greed. Okay.
He's going to get to 10 cards left in the deck next turn. Bloodshard Bristlebacks are going to be active. He's not worried about dying to anything. Like, you can tell he's counting damage. Okay, most damage from hand. He knows the Void Shard's there, right? Because 3 Twilight Deceptors have been playing all pulled spells. For 7 mana, be Void Touched, Void Shard Hero Power, which is 8 damage. That's max from hand. Once we flip over to 8 mana, it'd be double Void Touch, so it'd be 6 plus 4, it'd be 10 damage. It'd be max from hand with no minions on board.
Yeah, I like this though. Just sort of do what I was trying to say, which is just clear everything, heal up, and that's the... It might not be the most efficient way, but it's the least mistake possibility way.
Yeah. He's just going to play another big thing. He's got to get it out of his hand for Voracious Reader, but at this point I think that he's probably going to get pushed out of this game long before Voracious Reader even becomes available. Right now there's 16 damage available on board, by the way.
Yep.
He could just take it and then use the free Unstable Shadow Blast that Buzzy knows is there on the 5/6.
I wonder.
Sure. I don't have a problem with that. The Battlemaster is actually a decent-sized minion, and therefore a removal element in its own right, forgetting what it does. It's not just a win condition. It is a 5/5 that sits on the board and does the things that 5/5s do. 5 attack, 5 defense.
Gets back another Tamsin. Of course. So now can Tamsin... Oh, no, it can't Tamsin touch because the next touch costs 0.
Almost out of time.
Huh.
More bones to gnaw on.
Could get Flesh Giant down on board, though, quite easily. This Flesh Giant can throw out a Cold Neophyte, and this will certainly be game going to the next turn. Muzzy can't fight back.
Yeah, I feel like if this wasn't the final, this would have been given up like 3 turns ago for Muzzy anyway. But he's putting in his due diligence just to make sure. But yeah, he gives it up now, like you said, and it goes to game 5. Muzzy, head in hand, is going to come down to whether he can get it done with this sketchy priest deck against the well-refined rogue deck that doesn't have Kazakus in it.
No, it doesn't have Kazakus, so that hurts its ability to fight like straight up in a board-based matchup like this one. The Void Shard not Void Shard Attendant, just Void Shard. The Void Shard could come into play here if you can stick enough damage early, and then by the time the Rogue manages to wrestle the board back, get it done. But, it all comes down to this.
Certainly does. And it's close. It's very close. It's about as close to 50-50 as you could build this, I think. If I had to pick one, I think I would pick the Rogue, just because it's been more consistent and The Shadow Priest feels a little tiny bit unsynergetic these days.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't seen like the nuts curves from Muzzy that often with Shadow Priest specifically. But this is the Hearthstone that I love, when both players are playing these matchups where you know exactly what you have to do, right? It's all about the board and how to maximize your chances of winning the board each and every turn. Looking at sort of the key cards in this matchup, it's not Garrote and Guild Trader. It's going to be mostly the things that can deal damage early in the game. The Aug Merchants, Brain Freeze, I'll even take a Pen Flinger. The big one being Octobot. That's going to be the highest likelihood for McBanterFace to fight back on board, is just by having access to cheaper stuff.
Yep, the Priest minions and the Hero Power do combine to make for... Rogue can't stick one minion, right? It has to attack in waves of minions, 3 or 4 at a time. Yeah. If you just go, oh, here's a neophyte, and the priest goes, okay, well, I shoot your neophyte, try something else, and on you go. So it's not straightforward, but if the rogue can get that Octobot and play 3 things in a turn, it's like, oh, now I can only shoot one of your neophytes, and you play 3 of them. This is more tough. You know what I mean? I know there's not 3 neophytes.
I know you know there's not 3 neophytes.
See, he trusts me already. All right, let's get into this final game of the Grandmasters anywhere in 2021. Good luck to all involved.
Yep, that's a full toss from McBanterFace. Oh, he's not in. He's given a sigh of relief. That looks like he's got the goods.
That'll be an Octo most likely then.
Yep. Muzzy keeps... Oh, yep, there's an Octo and a Brain Freeze. Oh, this is some good stuff for McBanterFace.
Muzzy's got... Look at his curve, though. He's got double Neophyte. He can slow things down well, in theory. And he has his own Attendant. Still, obviously, prefer McBanterFace's hand, but Muzzy is going to be able to put up a fight here.
Yep.
Do you like establishing the tour guide, or you just want to go for it with the Attendant right from the start?
I think I'd prefer pushing more damage, but going to get the tour guide. This will allow him to go Colt Neophyte. Garrote is not a good draw.
No,
but I'll take the rest of his hand. And yep, going to coin out the Octobot. Muzzy not going to be really happy to see this one. Oh, and draws Benedictus off the top. Oh my gosh.
Oh, what can he even do? Well, what he can do is hope that McBanterFace's hand is bad. Proc the Octo and hope you don't give him anything too good, because he's going to proc it himself anyway. I mean, as turn 1 Octobots go, it's not the best. That's all I've got in Muzzy's favour here.
Yeah, this is kind of a dead hand, at least for this turn, right? Because of the Cold Neophyte. So he could like freeze the Cold Neophyte and Wand Thief just to get something else on board, but then you're not using it as removal. You could also just go Wand Thief and then Brain Freeze to kill it. But it's pretty low on development. He's also giving up some of the cards that he'd want if he were to like pick up Field Contact off the Shroud, which is reduced.
Also wouldn't be able to combo Swindle next turn if he plays both of those 2 cards, unless he picks up a cheap card from the Wand Thief or the top of his deck, which is kind of likely. So yeah, he's had to go slow.
Yeah. All right.
Oh.
Voracious Reader. I mean, again, the Benedictus, like, just no synergy with the Voracious Reader at all. It's going to be blocking pretty much everything. I mean, if Muzzy can, like, keep a board and then stick a 5/6 alongside of it, sure.
What about if he just picks up a 1-drop and plays it alongside the Reader next turn and just says, okay, I only draw 2 cards? That's a lot of cards.
Yeah. Your patch is not good now, but overall, a pretty good card for the matchup because you can try again, right? Or get a setup card. But the Cold Neophyte again making this turn pretty awkward for McBanterFace. He could just dump the Garrote right now and then Brain Freeze Wand Thief, but again, he's putting himself further back from being able to activate this Swindle. He's just going to Shroud this turn.
Wow, he is getting behind. He's going to be struggling to get back onto board.
Okay, well, I mean, Guild Trader not good, but he can always trade that away. And the Prize Plunderer is another good card for him to fight back on the board with.
Yeah.
Best draw off the top for Muzzy is, like you said, anything that costs 1, right?
Yeah, just
So
anything. He'll
dump
take it, right?
Yeah. He could also pick up, like, Traveling Merchant would be okay because it's big. That costs 1, but that's probably the worst thing that costs 1 in the deck.
Yeah, it's absolutely awful, but he probably would still take it. It's something. But he needs to pick up some of the 4/4s here.
Yeah.
Some gambling stuff.
Okay, Raised It is fine.
But yeah, like, you're drawing 2 extra cards. You get Homunculus number 2, which is the worst card in your deck we've established, I think.
Yep.
And a Raised Dead, which, yeah, like you say, it's fine. But you like to rip them out of your deck a different way rather than draw them.
Okay. None of these impact the board. And they're all quite expensive to have to just play by themselves. So I guess Arcane Intellect is probably the best. Also, with bleeds in the deck, maybe a Desperation Deck of Lunacy could be in the cards.
He needs to take action now, right? I mean, he's down to 18. That will never go any higher, barring some sort of craziness. Muzzy he's got the Hunter hero power, basically. He's got the extra 4 damage lurking in his deck. But McBanterFace needs to start treating this with some serious urgency.
Well, he can kill 2 minions on this board.
Yep.
I imagine it's just going to be... Oh, no, he's not going to kill the Cold Neophyte. Okay.
Right, this Raised Dead's huge, then.
Yeah, I think you need to try and go wide here. I don't think this is a play Benedictus and hope kind of turn. Those are okay. He'd hope for a Void Touch Attendant, I think, but, I mean, this allows him to go wide. His Vulgar Homunculus is going to pop out going to the next turn. So that's something that McBanterFace at least has to acknowledge. And his hand is largely spell-based right now, so the Cult Neophyte is pretty big. So I think we're looking at just... what, like a hand dump, and then not even the tour guide, right? Like play the Murloc Tinyfin and then hero power. So next turn, if his hand doesn't get any better, he can tour guide Benedictus and hero power something. So I think push the 3 to face and then hero power the Prize Plunderer. But then there's also, like, do you trade over the Wand Thief, because the Wand Thief could give McBanterFace an out with a Shadow Step.
No, he already thinks that's there. He's playing around that already. He thinks the Arcane Intellect's a scary card already, I think. If you look at the positioning, he's worried about that. He's got to hope some of these hit face for what? Let's say, I don't know, 4 or 5 damage. He can get a couple of hero powers in, and that he can get his Void Shard. That's his win, I think, now. He's only turned 5. But McBanterFace is taking on a lot of damage. We've laughed at these stupid 2/5s, but they are going to start appearing on the board. They're not that easy for Rogue to clear up.
Another happy guildie.
Gonna start with the trade. Garrote does not make things any better.
Sufficient.
And just gonna take as much damage off the board as he can.
Yeah, I do get your point about the Wand Thief, but I think if Muzzy's playing around that, he's losing from the start, if you like, there. He's just got to hope.
Okay. Guardian Og Merchant.
Oh. That's relevant because he gets to protect something. Muzzy doesn't like it, but it seems alright to me.
The problem is, like, if he goes face here, 11 is a lot to get through.
I must consider.
Sure.
And this, like, he also doesn't want to, ideally he'd want to proc the Octobot so that McBanterFace can't, like, curate his hand for the Octobot. Both Brain Freezes are gone, a Prize Plunder's gone, so, like, McBanterFace's ability to swing is limited to just, like, that last Prize Plunderer plus a Shadow Step. But in this situation, from Muzzy's point of view, he's probably thinking, like, oh my gosh, his hand is just field contact,
Right.
card draw, Prize Plunder, Shadow Steps.
And he's 4 pings and a Void Shard away. And if he now takes this turn to use the Org Merchant, he's still 4 pings and a Void Shard away. But if he gets it right and something gets to attack face because of it, those ping numbers or that Void Shard go right down. So if this defending means that his Benedictus gets 1 attack in, that equation goes all the way in Muzzy's favour.
Oh, the Prize Plunder!
No!
He's
Well,
just
yes,
missing the
depending
Shadow
which side
Step.
you're on.
Yeah, he's just missing the Shadow Step. So he's going to Shroud first. He always has the option to then Prize Plunder and then Seeker Passage.
Contact, fling. But he can't take any damage from the board. He's going to have to plunder. Was he played 3 cards or 4? 1, 2, 3, 4, I think.
4. Cold Neophyte, Swindle, Prep, and Shroud.
So he can fling, plunder, garrot.
I think he wants to fling Plunderer and then Secret Passage for the Shadow Step.
Okay, yeah.
If he has time, the Bleed animations plus the Penflinger animations. It looks like he didn't hit Shadow Step. Bleed, or he ran out of time. One of the two.
Didn't hit it.
Hit Prep. Void Shard is lethal.
It is.
Look like a tour guide. Yep.
Okay. Probably about the worst card he could pick up at this point. Deceptors. There's 2
Oh my
Deceptors. There's
gosh.
1 Raised Dead. There's 1 Void Shard, TJ. It might come down to another 50-50.
Muzzy needs 2 damage to stick on board. There's nothing left. It's the Prize Plunder sticks, so Shadow Step is still removal.
But McBanterFace might have taken too long here if he's going to try and find emergency out. So he's got to do it the old-fashioned way and kill everything.
He just needs to find Shadow Step, really, is the big one here. Start flinging things off with Penflinger, drawing through the deck. I mean, he's also getting pretty close to killing. Muzzy needs anything to stick on board.
Or he has out with a direct Void Shard or a 50-50 if he picks up a Deceptor.
Okay, there's Shadow Step. So he should be able to clear up the entire board here. And I think if Muzzy doesn't kill the next turn, then
Agreed.
he's going to die on the backswing.
Agreed. He would have to, so McBanterFace would have to go it. So McBanterFace needs to be aware of board space going into next turn here if he kills everything on the other side.
He's just going to go all in. He's just going to shuffle the Groat, make sure he pushes as much damage as possible. I mean, this is almost certainly a setup. So we're looking at Twilight Deceptor for essentially a 50-50.
Yep.
Traveling Merchant to trade. Void Shard is the card that he needs. Nothing else will do it. It's Void Shard.
And the ways to find it. What's he going to get?
It's a Tiny Fin.
It's a Desk Imp. You listed this as a key card, TJ. And it's going to be a key card in this year's Hearthstone Grandmasters. Because it's going to be the card that sees McBanterFace almost certainly go through.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 damage on board.
And no board space.
You're paying for my discretion.
The deck is all bleeds.
happy guilty.
It's 1 Guardian Aug Merchant and 5 bleeds. And there it is. That'll do it. McBanterFace does it with the Garrote Rogue, defeats Muzzy, and is going to the World Championship.
What a final. 2 or 3 draws for Muzzy to hit a long shot to get there. Must have made it so close to 50-50, but McBanterFace kept his cool, or at least is pretending to have kept his cool, and he is going to Worlds. Yeah, he gives out the let's go.
He popped off. He popped off.
He did pop off. And well done to McBanterFace. That has been a long season, his first season, and now he gets rewarded with his first World Championships. And that's the sort of game TJ wanted to see at the end. We said they go to 3-2, but this was a good 3-2. Game 5 was exciting.
It was. It came down to the last draw. Not a blowout on either side. Just a board battle through and through. And came down to the last draw. It was not very likely that Muzzy was going to pick it up, right? He needed a tradable. He needed exactly Void Shard. And there was a couple cards that let him get closer to it. But it was a Void Shard that he needed and couldn't get it done. Oh, man. That was rough. But McBanterFace, very first season of Grandmasters. Very first season. I'm sure that unless you tuned into his stream or maybe saw just his qualifying run at one of the Masters tours, you had no idea who he was. And now he's going to a World Championship. And honestly, we've said it time and time again, throughout the season, he doesn't try and do anything fancy, right? He doesn't try and break the meta. He doesn't try and wear hats or sunglasses.